Hello, welcome to Non-Dual Christianity. In this video, we'll explore the question, can God choose to forgive sin? So, we'll walk through some of the options. First, let's say that you would say, no, God cannot choose to forgive sin. If that's your approach, then I think one of the difficulties you'll run into is why? What external law or principle, like justice or something like that, law, are you holding God to that would prevent him from freely choosing to forgive sin? See, because whatever you come up with, you have now made that greater than God in whatever ways he is not free. Seems like kind of a difficult position to be in. So let's say you say, okay, sure, yes, God can choose to forgive sin, but no, he does not do so. And the reason is because of his character, or because that would not maybe make full restitution for the sins committed. So the problem that I see with this one is in the Bible, clearly God commands his followers, Christians, to forgive people when they sin against them. So you have this difference between the way God behaves and the way he commands his followers to behave. And if he's commanding his followers to behave in a worse way, if you say, well, God not forgiving is perfect, then why would we be commanded to forgive if that's a lesser path? Or if you say that, no, it's actually a superior path to forgive, then why doesn't God do that? It would almost seem as we could do something better than God. Or maybe you say, well, sure, we can forgive as long as people accept it. And I would say, well, that's not really forgiveness. Forgiveness is a one-way street. So then we're left with the third option, which is, yes, God can choose, and yes, God does. So then my question is, then why would there be any need for a payment for sins from Jesus Christ on the cross? See, I grew up with this very strong theology around the payment that was made by Jesus for our sins. But if God can choose to freely forgive sin, then why the need for any payment? See, that whole idea just kind of crumbles for me, because the payment aspect is not important if forgiveness is there. I would say there are other things, absolutely, that are taking place in that event of crucifixion and resurrection, but payment cannot be one of them in my mind. And one reason, and one very clear reason, is because God can choose to forgive sin. So why wouldn't he? Why go through the whole charade if payment, and I'm using that word specifically, is the main or the only question? So how does this relate to non-duality? Well, I think one of the biggest hurdles to seeing our own innate nature as divine is the uniqueness of Jesus Christ. And growing up, one of the biggest reasons why Jesus had to be unique is because he was the only one who could make the payment for sin, right? He is perfect, and perfect sacrifice is the only one that counts for a payment so that we can have forgiveness of sin. But if payment is not the main thing, or if payment is not part of the consideration on the cross, then that really kind of lowers the bar or the hurdle for that idea that Jesus had to be the only divine human, because that's the only person that could make payment for sin. And finally, just kind of a side note, if payment always has to be made for sin, once again, there's some sort of a law or principle then that is higher than God. But we don't really live in a grace-filled universe. If everything has to be paid and earned and balanced on the scales, then really what is grace? Grace is just simply paying it on someone else's behalf. But the universe, reality itself, is not grace then. Reality itself still must always balance. So, a couple ideas to ponder. I would love to hear in the comments if you feel like I have left out an alternate option other than the three that I went through of no, God cannot choose to forgive, yes, he can, but does not, yes, he can, and yes, he does choose. So thank you for exploring this with me today.